Alright, good morning YouTube. Episode 2. You have to pardon me, I'm feeling a little bit tired this morning. Had a pretty eventful day yesterday. I hung out with some old friends and caught up on a lot of things. I moved back to one of my old hometowns, so I'm experiencing a lot of nostalgia and just remembering a lot of things that used to happen around here. And unfortunately, most of all that has completely changed. Everything's gone, replaced. As they used to say, I can't remember who it was, maybe you can tell me, you can't go home. There is a lot of truth to that. You can still return to the place that you used to live, but it won't be what it was when you left. At any rate, I wish I would quit saying that at any rate. I think I've said it too much at this point, so maybe I can consciously stop saying that. I had a really good time. And yeah, I don't want to. I'm sitting here thinking like how much I want to say and how much I don't want to say. Sorry. Uh, two friends of mine that I was in bands with in the past. One's a guitar player and the other's a bass player. At one point, we were all in the same band together. I've been in other bands with the bass player, many different bands in this particular town, and we talked about getting back together and doing things. And at this point, I'm kind of more looking forward to doing like new things. I'm not really interested in looking back at the past so much. I would much rather like investigate, new avenues of bands, music production, whatnot, collaboration. So I'm really looking forward to that. It really is nice to get back in with people and get involved in collaboration because, for the longest time, a lot of what I've been doing has been a self-indulgent endeavor, which I've really enjoyed doing. Being a drummer, you're sort of a side man. You play a support role in pretty much all the bands that you play, and there's definitely exceptions to the rule for that. But more often than not, the drummer is a side man, the side man, that's supporting everything in the band below, including the bass player, which forms the rhythm section. And this journey for me, playing the synthesizers and sequencing everything, it's been just a wonderfully refreshing journey. Getting away from just I don't want to say having to do what other people, tell you to do. That's really not what it's all about. I mean, I really enjoy supporting people in music and being a sideman. But for this, like just being able to explore my own creativity uninhibited, just wide open, turn the faucet all the way up and just boom. It's been wonderful. And but at some point you got to collaborate, and I think this is why we as hardware jammers and producers on YouTube and what other channels, why we involve ourselves with different communities online is to spark more interest and to keep that passion fueled, which is kind of the main topic that I want to talk about today is passion itself and desire and what those really mean and what I really mean when I say those things. Um, because I have a friend of mine way out in Portland, and I had a conversation with him a long time ago. Uh, he's very much into music, like into a lot of different bands, and well versed in a lot of different, a lot of different bands, and goes and sees a lot of bands and so forth. But never explored any, being a musician himself. And I've asked him a few times, why, have you ever thought about just being a singer in a band? You love heavy metal and death metal, and Iron Maiden is not that kind of music per se, really, actually, because Bruce Dickinson and the later singers, they don't just grunt and groan. But I was saying like, hey, it doesn't have to be Iron Maiden. You can be like Meshuggah and just kind of grunt, and it probably would sound pretty good. But he really believes that he just does not have the talent to do that because, according to him, one is born with talent, or you're not born with talent, and you can't acquire it. Well, that's absolute bullshit. And really, what it amounts to is, do you really want to do it? Do you really, 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 really want to do it? And I would argue for him, which I shouldn't do, no, he don't want to do it. But I really believe that is the case. I played with too many people, and at some point, you got to learn how to separate the wheat from the chaff. And that's not exactly what I'm saying about my friend per se, but when you want to be a musician, you need to hang out with people who want to be musicians. Um, Talent exists. I'm not saying that talent does not exist. Talent is a real thing, and it definitely is a metric gauge. And you could say people are more talented than other people, but they got there for a reason. Now, in this day and age, things are only getting worse. The argument that one is born with talent, unfortunately, is only getting worse because of the phenomena of child performers on YouTube and so forth, 5-year-old kids playing ridiculously hard to do songs on their instruments of choice. And it seems to me though that for every child that's doing that, that at that young of an age, I mean, there are exceptions to every rule, but more than likely there's some parent who's kind of really pushing them hard to do that as well. So really, I think that that's an outlier case, and there definitely are some serious exceptions to the rule where some people are like just born, and yeah, they are born with that talent. It's just unexplainable. It really, really, really is. But those are pretty rare considerations, and most successful musicians, that's not the path that they took. They took the hard route. Like most mortal human beings, perhaps yourself, definitely myself, I am still learning how to do all of this stuff. I've been learning for 40 plus years how to play music, and it is a long running, never ending journey. And one thing that I can definitely say to you about all of it is that I absolutely love it, and I will continue doing it for a long time. But within that, there are different realms of instruments, for example. So, whereas I do have a large passion for music, I do not have a passion for learning how to play piano. I would love to want to learn how to play piano. I mean, I want to be able to play piano, but I definitely don't want to have to learn how to play piano. And that's what makes piano so awesome, is because there's like really no way you can just play piano without having to really learn how to play piano. I mean, even people with talent, natural talent, they spend the time, they really want to do it. A better example for me is playing guitar. I definitely have no desire to play guitar. I've owned an acoustic guitar in the past. I just don't enjoy. Maybe someday that will change. This is another important thing to understand about passion, is that you should never close off any of these kind of doors and thinking of what you can do and what you should do and so forth. Because one day you may decide that, no, I really do want to play guitar, or I really do want to learn how to play piano. And that may be the case for myself one day. But right now, at this point in time, I have zero passion for doing those things. I do have a great passion to get back to my drum set, however. That's a totally different story. Maybe that is kind of sticking with something that, a comfortable zone per se, because I already know how to play drums and such and so forth. But no, it's like that really is my passion. That is what I really, really enjoy and love doing. Again, playing hardware jamming. I love doing that. And I can sort of cheat. It's so this is an interesting thing. It's sometimes, like maybe I'm, by not taking this opportunity right now to learn how to play piano, I'm cheating myself out of being able to produce better, more rich music as a result. Well, that's true, but inevitably I'm going to have to suffer learning how to play piano. What I mean by that is not suffer. My music production will inevitably suffer a little bit at first, not a whole lot, and not really, because I can sort of do other things and not try to incorporate this nice wind. I apologize for the sound. I'm not going to be recording from this position too much longer. Let's try here a couple more days, but when the wind does pick up like that, it kind of makes some nice space. Maybe I can fix it in post. That's a lot of hard work to do, and I would rather not have to do that. But what was I talking about? You have to remind me as I take a sip of coffee. Well, something along the lines of, yes, is that it would take me a bit of time learning how to play piano, and if I wanted to incorporate my newfound skills and lessons that I learned into my music, it wouldn't happen immediately. It would slowly happen over a progression. But there would be a little bit of a cutback, because I would need to spend that time that I would otherwise spend crafting songs and coming up with just jamming, really, in practicing piano instead. Now, this is where improv jamming is beautiful, though. Once you get comfortable improv jamming, then it's kind of like, well, as long as I have 2 hours, I'm just going to improv, and I'm not going to worry about setting up sounds or coming up with a couple melody lines or harmony lines. I'm just going to throw something out there, and for 2 hours, and then maybe somewhere in the middle there'd be a couple 20-minute sections or 3 20-minute sections that have some more worthy while material. So yeah, maybe I should just learn piano then. Now's a good time. No, it's not. I got too much on the plate right now. So, but that's a debate that's up for discussion, I guess. And unfortunately, it's one that's going to be up for discussion because clearly, if my friend believes that you have to be born with talent to actually ever have talent, then he's not the only one. And also question, well, where did he learn that from? I mean, I tried to, like to tell him many, many times, politely that it's not the case, but sometimes, you can't get through to people. They just will not believe what it is that you're trying to help them with, honestly, because in my opinion, I was hoping I could just free him of any dogma that he's actually placing upon himself. I really think that somewhere along the line, somebody might have done that to him. What I mean by that is, a long time ago, I took an art class. I must have been 10, 11 years old, and it was at the university here in town. It was a summer kind of event thing and so forth, and long story short, one of the teachers really disrespected me, and it's just something you don't do to a child, especially involving them in art. I was asked, I guess, to do something that I didn't really understand what it was that I needed to draw, and what I drew was, admittedly garbage. But I was 11 years old, and I was like confused, didn't understand what I was supposed to be drawing, so I just kind of drew something without any lack, and basically, I can't remember what this person said, but basically called it trash. And that really kind of impacted me. It shouldn't have, but I was 11 years old and didn't have anybody else to, confirmation. So I decided at that point, I'm not going to really focus on art anymore. Maybe that guy did me a favor. See, the thing is that we shouldn't be resentful in the long run. Now, should that guy have done that? Hell no. Of course not. That's ridiculous. It's unacceptable. Should I be resentful still? Of course not. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to keep that burden on me? I let that go a long time ago. To tell you the truth, I do enjoy art. I totally enjoy it, and I enjoy trying to paint and draw when I can and so forth. Sometimes, when I do something that's actually pretty cool. Later in the mid-90s, I actually took another art class, a few art classes. And, because they were actual college courses, I think, the professors were absolutely respectful to the students, They may, tell you that no, what they would say is, do it again. That's how they would politely tell you that, you can do better. They wouldn't say, oh, that's garbage, that's trash. You shouldn't be an artist. You're paying money to the university to be. They're going to get fired for doing that. In this particular case, that guy, I probably could have had him gotten in trouble. I guess I'm glad that I didn't. I just let it slide. Again, I was just a little kid. Once a little kid didn't know. Not a lot of little kids know. But I didn't. I wasn't that clever, unfortunately. But again, why be resentful? So yeah, that's kind of my take on that, really. There's not too much more to say about that. I think that if you search deep inside, if you really, really, really want to do something, I think you'll see that, you have no problem doing it. One of the friends that I was talking to last night mentioned to me that he said that he remembered when he was taking electrical engineering at the university, and at the time he was having a really hard time, studying and learning everything and just getting the concepts. Mostly because we were out partying a lot and playing in bands, not really focusing all of our efforts, but, our attentions were wanting to be rock stars back then. We were just going to the university as a backup plan because we knew that chances were slim that we were going to be successful as rock stars, but still, we wanted to go for it. And so in this particular case, my friend, he said that he had a really hard time understanding the concepts of electrical engineering. But later in life, when he was just picking it back up on his own as a hobby, he said that he had no problem understanding it. He was just, because he wanted to learn how to do it. And that is the difference. I would say, just as a quick bit of advice to anybody who's starting university this year, who might happen to be watching this right now before you're starting university or something, it's very important to figure out what it is that you want to do as soon as possible. And more importantly, see if you can have 5 different things that you want to do. Try to get 5 skills. One skill is really not just enough, because out of those 5 skills, if you had 10 skills, that'd be even better, right? But you could find the one thing that you really love doing, that makes money, and that needs to be done, that is actually in demand. And that is what you study at university, because you're going to spend a lot of money, and it's only getting more expensive. Hopefully it will stop only getting more expensive at some point, but it doesn't seem to be doing that, does it? And my condolences, best of luck to you. You'll do well, I'm sure. Just understand that, like, everybody going into university and college, whatever it is that you think that you're going to do when you're a freshman, like 90% of the people coming out, that ain't what they graduate in. You change your major at some point, and you'll say to yourself, oh no, I've got it all figured out, very confident. And even if it's not what you're going to do, you're going to stick with it and do it anyways. Yeah, good luck with that. So have a backup plan. And more importantly, do what you really, really, really want to do. But if it doesn't make money, understand the consequences. I mean, why would you want to spend that much money to get into a profession that's not going to make more money than what you've invested into it, or going to be able to pay off? Okay, enough about that. We're talking about synthesizers. So thanks for watching the last episode. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching this episode. I thought what I would do is, instead of responding to the comments by commenting on the last episode, maybe just sort of reply to them here. I just have some notes. I don't have anybody's names because I don't, maybe I should give you all shout outs. I appreciate it. We're a pretty small community right now anyways. It's not even really a community per se. Like I said, I really appreciate y'all hanging out with me. I really do. Thanks. Cheers to you. So one of the first questions, and this really ties into what I was, what I'm talking about today, is, are you a musician? And so I would argue that even my friend who insists that you have to have talent, you have to be born with talent to even ever have had talent, that he's a musician and he doesn't even know it. Everybody is a musician. You are especially a musician if you've taken a couple sequencers and sequenced a couple melodies on them and put them together. It's kind of like, I guess a really ultimate hard-hitting question, controversial question: are DJs musicians? And when we say DJs, of course, we're talking about the modern variant on what a disc jockey has evolved into. But what about the old school 1950s radio disc jockeys who announced the songs on the radio in between them and so forth? Were they musicians? What does it really mean to be a musician? Well, see, that's just the thing, is that everybody has the capability of singing. We all have this crazy oscillator right here. It's totally acoustic. It's not analog because there's really no electricity. Now, you could argue that we are an electrical cyborg being deep down from some past alien, blah, 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 whatever, so maybe there is electricity involved, and okay, but let's not go there, right? Really what we have is an acoustic system. It's more mechanical, and it works. It's amazing if you ever look into the physiology of the vocal cords and how they oscillate and they couple to the various parts. It's really fascinating. It really is. It involves some serious mechanical engineering. It's amazing. So yeah, we're all musicians because we all have the ability to sing. And even right now, you may be able to hear all the birds singing around me up here in the trees. And they're the original musicians, in my opinion. They're dinosaurs, right? Birds are super old. And I love to just sit here and listen to the birds and think about like how I can recreate those sounds with my synthesizers. I can't, not yet, but I like to think about, okay, how would I start to approach? This is great for understanding synthesis. I recommend, it's an exercise that you should try yourself. So just to answer the question real quickly, yeah, we're all musicians. If you're here right now watching this, you're probably a musician. You're definitely passionate about music. Sorry about that wind. I saw the camera blink. So just to say that again in case it didn't pick up, if you're here right now watching, you are definitely a musician. You are passionate about music. Okay, so another question. This is interesting. This is one that, a topic I don't really like to talk about too much because, I really like to talk about things that I like. I like to try to avoid talking about things that I don't like, even though I will. And sometimes I think that there is a weird kind of war that's going on between different synthesizer companies and the marketing firms that they hire and so forth. And there's a lot of just, I don't, business practices that I don't really agree with. So, first of all, I would say, like, if you're really mad at Behringer, it's like, why aren't you mad at the rest of them? Because they all engage in dirty practices at some point. It's business. That's business, and it's marketing. When you employ marketers and advertisers, they play dirty games. So, but the companies themselves, they all, I think they try to be good people. So I was asked, what do I think about the Electron workflow? And, well, if you didn't already know, it's like I'm not the biggest Electron fan. And I don't really have any rhyme or reason for that. It's just one of those things where, okay, so I went to a music store several years ago, one of my favorite music stores that was in Nashville, Corner Music. They have since moved to another location. They may have shut down, unfortunately. I think they're still going, but they definitely changed after they moved. It's pretty sad. I really wish that they didn't have to move. But that was the place to go in Nashville to get synthesizers. And I got to see the Digitone, the Digitact. And I'm sorry, I am legitimately one of these people that I just can't stand the way those buttons sound. Now, of course, if I got headphones on, I can't hear it, but it drives me nuts. I'm sorry. It's just, no, I can't handle it. So apart from that, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, this is going to be very difficult to learn. Just as difficult to learn as the Scorp Pyramid was to learn. So it's really not that I am opposed to the Electron workflow. It's just that, what can I do with the Electron workflow once I have it? Where can I take this outside to another device? Now, you can say, okay, well, what can you do with the Scorp Pyramid? How can you take that outside? Well, you really can, but now the overbridge thing and so forth, whatever. I'm sure that's awesome. But really what it boils down to with me is that I like dedicated boxes. I mentioned maybe I'm pretty sure I did in the last episode, that I'm really not a groove box fan. One of the reasons why is because, you've just got a single source for the most part, unless they have individual outs. But another reason why is, it's kind of like, I don't really enjoy just using that sort of one way into music production. Now, I know that sounds completely hypocritical because you're looking at the Scorp Pyramid, hopefully you are, and saying, well, how is that any different? And it's only different because the Scorp Pyramid is a dedicated MIDI box. And it has CV out too, but who's going to use it for that? The Scorp I really believe is meant to be MIDI, and the CV is cool to have, but it's very, very, very specialized. It's for something, like you get like not just the icing on the cake, but the sprinkles on top of the icing on the cake, that kind of thing. So totally unnecessary. You're not going to really be using that if you have the Scorp. You're going to be using the Scorp for its MIDI capabilities. I can't find another sequencer apart from a DAW that is capable of sequencing up to like 32 tracks like that in the way that it does. So far, my only gripe, and I'm digressing, I'll come back to Electron, don't worry. But so far, my really only sort of, and it's not a gripe, it's the thing that I'm having a hard time, not learning, but doing, like performing. The thing that I'm having a hard time pulling off is the sequencer mode. That one is a little backwards to how I would have, thought, how I would have liked to it have been. But it is the way that it is, and I basically just have to think backwards, so I've got to do a lot of practicing on performing with that in that mode to really get it, and once I do that, I think I'll be comfortable with it. So if I did all that with the Electron, I would have no problem using it, but I don't know, that it just doesn't bring me joy to have everything, all your controls right there for not just the sequencing, but the sound production as well. That's really the difference. Now, you can do some sound shaping with the Scorp Pyramid via MIDI CC, that is, I don't think that's really quite the same thing. I think that's just added power instead. You don't have to use it. Like, it's actually better to walk over to the device and tweak the knobs, in my opinion, than to try to sequence it with MIDI CC. MIDI CC is kind of the downfall of the old MIDI spec, and this is what we're hoping that MIDI 2.0 is going to vastly improve upon, and I'm sure it will. But in terms of like Electron, like what I would buy if I were to buy an Electron device would be, wow, we got a really loud truck going over here, so probably to end the stream pretty soon anyways. I want to get a little closer so you can hear me. Would be the Analog 4. That is something that I think that I would really enjoy using, but I don't really have need for it, and it's very expensive, and it's kind of big and bulky too. So it really all kind of boils down to, like, is I don't use the Electron workflow because I chose to use the Scorp workflow instead. I think that works out for me just a whole lot better, and the important thing is that you choose the workflow that works best for you. This is one of the most critical and important things in our hobby or profession that we're doing, is understanding like what is the best way to actually produce notes from the devices themselves. Be it CC and gate, be it MIDI, be it actually performing. What is the best way for you to record that, to loop that, whatever, And that's what's most important. So the first thing that you want to do is decide, okay, what do I think is the best way for me? I guess that what I would say my choice would be super powerful MIDI sequencing. I want to be able to sequence as many tracks. I would love to be able to have 64 tracks if I could. And I'll handle all the hardware connections myself. Don't worry about that. That's on me. Got really noisy here, didn't it? So I understand that for you, that may not be the choice. The Electron would be a great choice because you don't have to worry about all the interfacing with other devices and all the cables that are necessary to interface all that stuff, how they fit together. What's really funny about all of this is that, you get one of these boxes, you get two of these boxes or three of these boxes. You set them on the table, you're like, hey, cool, these fit together. Now you try to hook them up with the cables in them. Suddenly you need this much space between them, that much space between these two. Now you need a much larger table. Now you need some kind of way to stack them together and so forth. So if you only have one box, you don't have to deal with all of that, and I really get it. Also, what about live performance? How am I going to take the rig that I have live? I'm not going to be able to do that. So that's where a groove box probably would be a little bit better. I would want to bring a couple more ancillary devices in there just to be able to beef some of the sounds up a little bit more. Maybe an additional drum machine, a couple effects pedals, multi-effects pedals probably, and just to make sure that that everything is coming through loud and clear. Sometimes, because when you get too much going on one groove box, you will suffer a little bit of penalty compression wise on the audio, or even voice stealing within the multi-timbral functionality of whatever engine that it uses behind the scenes. So another question was talking about old gear and favoring old gear over new gear or new gear over old gear. Yeah, I am a new gear kind of person. I just want to say that I fully believe that yes, you can get that retro sound with new gear if you want to. One of the biggest misconceptions about synthesizers and what we hear from a recording from one of our favorite artists and favorite songs is the production of that song and what was done to that synthesizer to make it sound the way that it does on that recording. It does not sound like, what am I trying to say? Sorry. The synthesizer out of the box, it just doesn't sound like what it does on the recording necessarily. We, as engineers, as producers, we use all kinds of tricks. Yes, the cool thing about synthesizers is, as I mentioned in the last episode about drum machines, is that the sounds are ready to go. It's line level, totally perfect recordings, noise free, ready to go. But why would you want to use those sounds knowing that they could become dated? And producers understand this. So you want to have a unique sound while still being relevant and modern. But the best way to do that is just you run some effects through it. And a lot of times you find that running certain effects through, running certain instruments through these effects brings out like the brilliance in them and allows them to cut through the mix in a way that regular EQ just doesn't do. There's all kinds of tricks you can do, and this is why people should spend a lot of time going through when they're mixing to try to discover all the best ways to make their tracks sound as best as they really can. I mean, you would be surprised what chorus, can do. One of the most misunderstood effects, I think, is chorus. Chorus is a great presence spreader, and it is a great way to, without increasing the volume or the amplitude of a signal, to spread it out and to get it to cut through a mix in a way. A little slapback delay will do that as well. So my philosophy and then my choice, and I'm never telling you what to do, unless you're specifically asking me for your advice, is, but me personally, I am totally cool with buying the new gear. I don't believe that SMD technology is inferior to through-hole technology really in any way, apart from the fact that sometimes they get it wrong with SMD, and the reason why is because SMD, it's very easy to have printed circuit boards that are multifunctional. You can have one printed circuit board that can be used for 4 different circuits. So you could have, and you'll see this, you'll see missing components because they're not needed for that version of that circuit board. And mistakes can happen as a result of that too, and whole things can go out. And not to mention, SMD is a lot harder to work with. You have to have more skill to repair SMD. It's another kind of technique that you have to work on and acquire. Through-hole is a lot easier to repair and work with. But once you get used to SMD, once you've acquired the tools to do it, it's a no-brainer. And that's just going to be like the way that everybody's going to be shifting ahead and getting the tools to do SMD. I think when SMD came out, it wasn't that the industry didn't want repairs. I mean, they do, but at the same time, it's kind of like, hey, it'd be a lot easier if we could just throw this stuff away and not have to worry about repairs. So yeah, there is a want to get rid of repairs, and it's kind of like, it ain't working. I mean, on some level it is, but no, not really. Everybody's evolving and stepping up to it, and I'm pretty excited about that. So that's really cool. And so old gear is great if you just don't mind fixing it up. If you love old gear, I guess the cool thing about the older gear is that it's probably going to be bigger, and if you want bigger devices, then yeah, that's the way you need to go. I like the smaller devices. That's just me. So for me, the new gear, the new modern technology it's wonderful. I feel like we're in a really golden age of synthesizer technology right now. And so yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thanks once again for watching. We almost got through an entire cup of coffee. This is, again, the battery bank that I was using yesterday. Let's see, where are we? 93%. So I've been running about 1 hour of camera time on this Zoom Q2N off this power bank. If you know anything about the Zoom Q2Ns, if you use like regular AA cell batteries, after about 30 minutes, they're gone. So this bank is awesome. Thanks, y'all. Cheers. See you next time. Well, hi, Ruby. Hello, girl. You got anything to say for us?